Good morning, my friends out there. I'm excited to be here today with you with another episode of Happiness After Codependency. I'm Marshall Berkshire, and I'm your guide back into that happiness after that codependency. I help you do that by coming to know, love, and be who you are, because that's the foundation and the result of healing codependency, because codependency is the loss of self in someone else, it's external orientation, and then coming back to knowing, loving, and being who we are. Well, that's how we heal it. So I'm excited for today's episode because today we're going to be jumping into a second episode of a series called Exposing the Codependent Fantasy. Today we're going to touch on the fantasy of the power that one feels when they think they're the problem and then they're the solution. So before we get started with that, I need to share this out quickly to the community. So I'm going to do that right now. The community is your safe haven where you can find tools, guidance, and support in your journey in coming back to knowing, loving, and being who you are and experiencing the freedom you deserve from codependency. The link is above on Facebook and below on YouTube. Be sure to check out the rules that are there before you join so you make sure that the community is a proper fit for what you need in your world. That's one of our big practices in healing codependency, is determining what we need and whether a resource that we encounter lines up with that. And so that's a good practice right there in building that out for you. Additionally, just as a heads up, enrollment for the Happiness After Codependency system is open. It's open until April 8th. Link is above on Facebook, below on YouTube. To get more information on that, if you are listening via YouTube, hit that subscribe button, as well as enrollment for my next live course, the Healing Codependency Essentials Trainings, which is a 4-week course, is open for enrollment as well. Both of these systems are designed, the Healing Codependency Essentials Trainings is designed to help you identify your codependent impulses, map them to a healthy impulse, identify and neutralize your codependent fantasies, disengage the fawn response, which is the origin of all codependency, and come back into occupying your personhood. So this gives you the foundation for the rest of your work going forward. The Happiness After Codependency system takes you deep on making these things real and permanent in your life. So check those out and come and join us. We have a 30-seat limit on the Happiness After Codependency system, and anybody who wants to join the Healing Codependency Essentials course can join. All right. Now let's get to the topic. So in codependent fantasies, we got a number of them. We got some big ones like the better than nothing fantasy. We got small ones that catch us in the background like I can fix them. I can rescue them. My love will change them. These are really prominent, kind of opaque or invisible or subtle fantasies, rather, that operate and motivate us in a lot of ways in our codependency. Notice that these fantasies are all focused on the other person being something they aren't. Because one of the core components of codependent fantasy is denial of reality. We're not willing to acknowledge it. We're not willing to connect with it. We're not willing to interact with it. We want it to be different. So it's really critically important that when we encounter codependent fantasy in our world, we need to acknowledge I am ignoring something. And specifically, we're ignoring something that causes us pain, causes us distress, causes us to question reality, to feel vulnerable or fragile or exposed, or to be confronting an old or unresolved trauma from the past. This denial habit is about trying to keep our pain back there while focusing and maximizing on their pain right here. And this is where this fantasy of power comes into play. So I was reflecting on this over the last couple of days in my own work and how I don't have a sense of power or thrill anymore in the idea that if I make myself the problem, I make myself the solution. So the way this kind of fantasy shows up is often we blame ourselves for what they are doing. And behind that is this idea that I can influence and control what they do by what I do and don't do. there is a sense of power in that. That sense of power allows us to ignore the reality of things. The reality in this is this concept called natural powerlessness. So in the Heal Yourself strategy and in the Happiness After Codependency system, we talk about this idea of natural powerlessness. What it basically is that we have a very limited scope of power in our world. Now, basically comes down to 5 specific things. We have power in how we care for and manage our emotions, how we care for and manage our desires, the choices we make, the actions we take, we've got our 4 there, and then the resources we have. Resources are like our time, our energy, our capacity, our body, material items we own, things of that nature. That's the scope of our power. That's it. Everything else is in this natural powerlessness. That includes the weather. That includes whether the cat's going to sit on your lap or not. That includes what other people choose to do, not do, who they choose to be and not be, and what they choose in their yard. When we come into contact with this natural powerlessness and we're anchored in a codependent response, that's terrifying. Like, that person can do whatever they want, and we don't feel safe or secure in that because we don't have control over that. We're vulnerable to that because our sense of connection, our sense of safety in codependency is generated by our sense of power to control the other by doing certain things and by not doing other things. AKA, if I be the perfect person, they're going to love me. If I get rid of this need or this want or this boundary, they'll stop doing that. If I become what I think they want me to be, they're going to love me more. They're going to resume the seduction component of this cycle where they love bomb me and everything is heavenly and it's a Disney movie. They're not going to go back into this abuse dynamic or discarding me, that kind of thing. So this is where we have our sense of power, our sense of safety, and how we forge our connection with the other individual. It's a product of fawning in a lot of ways because our effort to please them is an effort to feel safe. When we connect to this reality, we can start to understand what we really need and how we need it. And this is a biggie because we all have 3 necessities, 3 essential things that matter to us. We first need to feel safe. Safe emotionally, safe physically, safe in our relationships. That's what we're going for first in all of these responses, is to increase a sense of safety in these areas. Because we're intrinsically fearful. We know something's wrong. We know something's unreliable, unstable. That's our big red flag, by the way. Relationships that are healthy are not scary. They don't have a fear component operating in them. They're warm. They feel like home. Things are secure. They're reliable. And that's based on how the people behave in that relationship. So there's that element. Second one, in these necessities, we got our safety. Now we have connection. We need connection because we're an interdependent species. I call us sticky beings. We like to connect and stay connected with each other. Well, if I'm trying to fix them, if I'm trying to exert this power in their world so I feel safer, I can also feel like I have a connection because sometimes it works. It's like, ooh, that worked, and now they're loving me, and I feel this connection here. And that brings us to the third one, identity. I'm a fixer. I'm a pleaser. I'm good at this. I have a purpose now. That shifts into identity. So codependency is an attempt to meet these 3 essential needs that we all have. The 3 necessities is what I call them. Really important because we can meet these 3 necessities without codependency, but it does require us to first get into an actually safe environment. And this comes back to this fantasy of power. So if I blame myself, then I have the power to change something, which means I change me, I change them. That's the fantasy. We think that if I'm the problem, then I'm the solution. So if I change me, then they'll change. They'll stop doing that. It seems to it sounds like a logical equation, right? If I do A, then and they do B, and I don't like B, well, if I do C, maybe they won't do B. Maybe they'll do D, and D will be what I want. It's an idea of influence that way. But that's not reality. Reality is people will do whatever people do, and then we need to determine if their behavior aligns with our own standards, our own values, our own what I call guiding principles that we explore in the Know Yourself strategy and the relationship strategy, which are part of the Heal Yourself or the Happiness After Codependency system. When we know what we value, we know what works for us, then we can see if the way they behave aligns or not with that, and then make a decision from there. Make a decision that's honest to ourselves, a decision that's honest to them. This is where we find what I call operational compatibility. Oh, we actually do fit together. Yeah, there's some things we gotta work out and negotiate, and we got edges and differences that might clash a bit here and there. But overall, there's no abuse, there's no verbal attacks, there's no withdrawal, there's no contempt, there's no stonewalling. We're working through skills, we're growing ourselves, but there's not a harmful, unsafe relationship going on. That's a product of being anchored in ourselves. That's a product of knowing, loving, and being who we are, rather than trying to control their behavior by being something else. So take a moment throughout your work, throughout your exploration of your own codependency, and see where you're trying to make yourself the problem so you can make yourself the solution. Because this brings in the other half of this equation. In the fantasy, we always make ourselves the problem because we think we are the problem. We haven't been validated, we haven't been cared for, we haven't been protected, and we haven't been empowered to stand in our own yard, our own sovereignty. And so we're like, yeah, maybe I am the problem, so I'll try this out. Extremely common response, one I did 1 billion times myself. Our work here is to stop that and start looking at the situation instead and say, is their behavior treating me with love and respect? Am I being treated with care and with regard? That's where I start. Now, yeah, my behavior might need improvement. And they might be saying, hey, that hurts, don't do that. That would be a healthy response. But if I'm being abused because of a behavior I did, that's not acceptable. Ever. See, this is the cool part. We start to discern that, yeah, maybe there's something I can improve in my skills, but I still don't deserve this treatment over here. So rather than I'm the problem, I need to change something, the dynamic has to change. We have to slow our train down and go, maybe I'm not even the problem. Sometimes we're not. Commonly, what we think the problems are is I had a need. I'm too much. I'm too sensitive. I'm too needy. I said no. I had a boundary. Now I'm selfish. These are actually not problems. These are normal aspects of relationship. You got needs. You got wants. You got limits. You got capacities. That means you're going to have requests. That means you're going to say yes to things. You're going to say no to things. You're going to say maybe to things. That's a normal human thing. When we're in toxic relationships, especially with people who are entitled in their thinking, those things become weaponized against us, and then we're made to feel like we're the problem there, when in reality, their entitlement is the problem. So now we can begin to discern what is really going on here. Is this someone who's trying to control me to get me to give them more access to my resources? Or is this someone who respects me and treats me with kindness and love and demonstrates that by gaining consent, by asking, and by applying gratitude and appreciation for the privilege of relating with me. And then I get to feel the same, the privilege of relating with them. We shift the paradigm here. So we come back to our actual real power, which lies in our choices and our actions, and how we care for and manage our feelings and our desires and our resources. This is how we break free of this fantasy of having power by being the problem so we can be the solution. There you go, my friends. Let me know your thoughts below. I'm going to check on the comments real quick. Hope says, oh my gosh, yes, I still get those waves. Not near as much as I used to, but it still happens where I'll realize I'm totally powerless over them. Yeah, I feel you. And Shani says, very helpful. I thought of it in this way. I was always told I was not enough and that I was responsible to fix their problem in order to earn their love. Explicitly said, like, do this enough and maybe I'll learn to love you. Yeah, you're being exploited there. That's called it's a bait. So they're dangling the little carrot there. So, yeah, these are things we really, really live through. These are real things. So, thank you guys for showing up. Thank you for being here. Go gently with yourself in this exploration and see where you might be seeking that power, and then come back to your real power of making choices and actions based on what you value and what adds to your long-term well-being and happiness. And if you want help with that, come join us in the Healing Codependency Essentials trainings or the Happiness After Codependency system. And let's bring you back to happiness by helping you know, love, and be who you are. Have a safe day, my friends, and I will see you in our next episode. Bye-bye.